What's going on, guys? Overman back again, and today we're going to talk about the article that popped up on Kotaku a few days ago, and I'll link it in the description box below if you'd like to read it. But basically, the author, Jason S., interviewed several Bungie employees to find out what exactly happened to Destiny's story pre-release, because it was quite obvious that something terrible had happened in the final stages of development, judging by the extremely low quality story that this game shipped with. And according to the article, it all started in the summer of 2013. Joe Staten and his team of writers put together what was called the supercut, which to my understanding was essentially a 2-hour movie version of the game's story. But when they showed it to the leadership of the studio, it wasn't received very well. And that's when the decision was made to scrap the original story and create a new one. Now, some other Bungie employees saw the supercut as well, and amongst those that were interviewed, the supercut received mixed reviews. One person said that it was terrible and described it as a confusing, highly esoteric story that just didn't make sense. But ironically, that statement itself doesn't make sense. I know this because using my special access to the highly mystical and mysterious source known as the Google, I procured the definition of esoteric, and it literally means intended for or likely to be understood by only a small number of people with specialized knowledge or interest. So obviously this person felt like the story could be understood, but just that they themselves couldn't understand it, which is why they said it doesn't make any sense. But they acknowledged that it could be understood by a small group of people that that person wasn't a part of, ergo, this motherfucker felt sad because he felt left out. Wham! Another said that it had strong characters, it had a beginning, middle, and end. It unraveled and solved an entire mystery in this corner of the universe. That's something that definitely can't be said about Destiny now. But interestingly, a third person said that the supercut made the actual story look bad. And I can understand why the supercut would have made the story look bad, since the original story was probably pretty long. And while trying to condense it into this little 2-hour movie thing, a lot of details and explanations could have been lost in the transition, which would partially explain why the first person thought that the supercut was terrible. And finally, the higher-ups criticized the supercut by saying it was too linear and campy, which doesn't make any sense at all to me, because those are two ways I could describe the vanilla game. The story was pretty damn linear. You go here, you kill some bad guys so that you can go over there and kill some other bad guys. And I know that you could choose any mission you wanted to and go in any order you wanted to, but I'd be willing to bet that most people just did the missions in order. Like if you were level 5, you'd most likely do that mission that said level 5, and then you do 6, and 7, and 8, and so on. I doubt most people were at level 5 and thought, hey, let me do level 8, 6, and then 7. That just wouldn't make any sense. And also, they made the game even more linear in terms of the exploration of planets and the moon. You know, you go from Earth to the moon, then Venus, and Mars, in a linear fashion. According to the article, in the original story, you bounced around all of the planets in the early hours of the game. So good job, guys, way to make the game less linear. And you want to talk about campy? The biggest thing that the gameplay in the vanilla game was criticized for was constantly defending Dinklebot while he hacked something. So you'd take cover and you'd defend Dinklebot from a single location and hold off against waves of enemies while in the same position. That sounds pretty damn campy to me. I mean, this is like the owner of a restaurant tasting a dish that the cook made, and he criticizes it by saying it's too spicy. So he goes and he makes his own dish, and it comes out spicy as fuck too. It just doesn't make any sense. They didn't like that the story was campy and linear, but they went ahead and made a campy and linear story anyways, so what the fuck was the point? And I know that it's possible that Staten's story was linear-er or campy-er, but like, how much more campy and linear can you get than what we got in the first game? I mean, it just doesn't make sense here. It doesn't add up. But you know what? Actions speak. Because the story we got in the vanilla game, and even in the Taken King, despite its rave reviews, have something in common, that they're generic and appeal to the lowest common denominator, while it sounds like the version done by Staten wasn't. So maybe the higher-ups had another motive for scrapping the old story. And I also really have to question the management's decision to scrap a story so close to release. I mean, if they didn't like the supercut, they should have at least looked at the story as a whole outside of the box of this little 2-hour movie thing that the public would never see. But my guess is that these two criticisms weren't the only motive for scrapping the old story, because if they were, then they could have simply modified the original story to make it less campy and linear. But no. Instead, they decided to scrap the whole whole damn thing from one of the best writers in the business. And that to me is extremely telling, that they didn't want to tell this type of story and that they wanted to tell another. I think it's possible that these higher ups agreed with the first guy that said the story was too esoteric. But I mean, how? The story doesn't require you to be a fucking rocket scientist to understand. To my understanding, you'll essentially be mentored by Osiris, who was on a quest to understand everything, the darkness, the light, and the traveler. What's so hard to understand? I mean, if you watch my videos criticizing the Taken King story, I was basically asking all of the questions that Osiris was asking. And who am I? I'm just some fuckhead that drinks too much coffee and rambles about video games on the internet. If asking basic questions like who's the traveler is too esoteric, then fuck man, the gaming industry is in some serious trouble. And you know, I was proofreading a paper that my girlfriend wrote for her World Civilizations class, and it was about Gilgamesh. And as I'm reading this paper, I realized that this story is thousands of years old, and it shits all over Destiny's story. And isn't that sad? Our stories should be getting smarter, not dumber. If we can understand a story like Gilgamesh, why can't we understand Staten's story? I remember back in high school, my English teacher had us on some real OG dank shit. I mean, some stories that really blew our fucking minds at the time and changed the way we thought about the world around us. We were just teenagers in high school thinking and doing dumb shit, but when we were in class, we were all deeply moved and interested by these stories that we were reading. Stories like Lord of the Flies blew our fucking minds. Stories like Fahrenheit 451 blew our fucking minds. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest blew our fucking minds. And it didn't stop there either. The Scarlet Letter, Shakespeare, Greek mythology, all of these stories shit on Destiny's story in terms of depth, complexity, and originality. They were far more stimulating. And are we really saying that this is the future? Are we really saying that people wouldn't be able to grasp the idea that the traveler might be evil? Would the basic questions that Osiris asks be too deep and complex for us? Those are the very same questions I asked a few videos ago and people agreed with me. So how far does this go? Will there come a time in the next generation when the youth will not have some form of entertainment to blow their fucking minds and change the way they think and feel about the world? All because the entertainment industry would by then succumb to the lowest common denominator in an effort to boost profits as much as possible? I certainly hope not, and I hope Staten and his team can find another studio that will allow them to do their thing, because it is my firm belief that if you have the ability to do so, then it is your societal duty to blow people's fucking minds. But judging by a lot of the responses I saw on the Destiny subreddit, it seems like a lot of people are cool with having a story that basically boils down to shoot the aliens in the face because the good guys said the aliens are the bad guys. And I think that this was the demographic that the higher ups at Bungie wanted to cater to, as this is the most profitable demographic. If you wondered why the vast majority of entertainment seems so low quality, this is why. Dumbed down, super simple entertainment is more profitable than well thought out, deep and intellectually stimulating entertainment. It's one of the reasons why Nicki Minaj and Kim Kardashian are so popular. They appeal to the lowest common denominator. It's one of the reasons why, let's say, a guy like Total Biscuit will never be as popular as the aforementioned females. Total Biscuit doesn't have a fat plastic surgery enhanced ass that he can shake on camera for hundreds of millions to see. And I doubt he'll ever have the opportunity to suck off Ray J in a sex tape either. And of course I doubt he'd want to do those things either, but I digress. I think that the original story was dropped in an effort to dumb down the game in order to make it more profitable. And the article says that after Staten's work was scrapped, they had to get to work on rebooting the game. So they created the director and fashioned a new story that would fit in with the other work that they've done on the game so far. So when they were reworking the story, they couldn't fit in everything that was in it before. So they had to cut those things out and add them in later, which would explain the on-disc DLC controversy. But here's the crazy part of all this. You ready? The Dreadnought was supposed to be in the vanilla game, not in the Taken King expansion. And instead of the Dreadnought being the main attraction of the previously named Comet DLC, a brand new planet called Europa was supposed to be in the Comet. Also mentioned in the same breath, the original plan was to have an area called the European Dead Zone in the Cosmodrome in the base game, but I think now that's gonna probably be in Destiny 2 along with Europa. Speaking of areas in the Cosmodrome, remember old Chicago? I bet we'll see that in Destiny 2 despite that area being in trailers for Destiny 1. And isn't that sad that some content that was planned for year 1 won't be seen until year 3? But anyways, originally I thought this whole cut content thing only included the first 2 expansions. I thought that the Taken King would be entirely new stuff. However, according to this, the Taken King was supposed to be in the original game. And if the Taken King was supposed to be in the original game, wouldn't that also mean that the Dark Below was supposed to be in the original game, since Oryx is pissed at us for killing Crota? I mean, the story could have been modified, and maybe originally Crota came for us after we killed his father, but I mean, why would they make such an arbitrary change to the story by switching roles like that? And all of the lore points towards Oryx being more powerful than Crota, so it would just make sense that it went Crota and then Oryx. Thus, Crota's End was most likely supposed to be in the base game, and let's not forget that several areas from the Dark Below DLC were glitched into at launch, and some even in the beta. And I also have to mention that when this game was shipped, people were glitching into the House of Wolves DLC areas. You can go look it up. People glitched into the Tanix Strike area over a year ago. So what this means is that the $60 Legendary Edition of Destiny that you can buy right now that gives you the base game plus all 3 DLCs was supposed to be the game that we got last year with a better story. But due to the fuck ups that Bungie had, we ended up paying $140 for all of that content instead of $60. So best case scenario, Bungie fucked up but found a way to make that fuck up highly profitable. Or worst case scenario, whether they were influenced by Activision or not, decided to cut up the story to make more money. Any way you slice this, it's fucked up. But you know what? I understand that fuck ups happen and not everything goes the way you plan it to. That's totally understandable. But the extent to which this happened with Destiny is unacceptable. You know what the reasonable thing to do in this situation would be? Since they had to cut out so much from the base game, they should have just charged less for the base game. I mean, it wasn't the players' fault that things went to shit in the studio, so why should they pay the price? You know, when Destiny first came out, I strongly felt that had this game been priced at $30-ish, I would have been okay with Destiny, and I would have been a lot nicer about it all. But that wasn't the case, because why the fuck would they? Why would they when they knew they could get away with this and then promise us better with the DLC that was cut out of the base game? Also, before I end the commentary, something else I wanted to briefly talk about is this whole engine thing. In the article, some Bungie employees explained that it's so hard to work on the game because of its engine. They say that the engine takes an absurd amount of time to load things up and make basic changes. And while I think it's nice to know why some of the updates come out as slow as they do, and I appreciate the transparency even though Bungie themselves aren't saying this and it's coming from some leaked information source anonymously from Bungie employees or whatever. If your engine sucks, whose fault is that? Sure as fuck ain't mine. So if you don't like your engine, make a new one. And how about you make a new one with all the money you made swindling the customers who paid $140 for a $60 game? But then this made me worry about the future of Destiny. You know, COD has a very outdated and underperforming engine, and that's one of the reasons why CODs don't seem to change that much. And they don't have the capabilities that some other games have, like Star Wars Battlefront for example, which looks considerably better than Black Ops 3 while having massive battles, including vehicles, turrets, etc. When Black Ops 3 can only muster a whopping 9v9 with no vehicles or things like that. So what's gonna happen with Destiny's engine? I mean, this time next year, is Batman gonna be making an hour-long video about Destiny's shitty engine and why Bungie Vision doesn't want to spend the money to make a new one, all while taking a dump on whatever big Destiny YouTuber decides to say, "Hey there, you make some changes over here, and then you change the color of that over there, poof, new engine." I don't know, man. I seriously hope not, but I don't know. We'll see, I guess. Anyways, that's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button. If you're not feeling too shy, drop a comment down below. Let me know what you thought about the article. And if you want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and follow me on the Twitter. Link will be in the description box below. That's it for me, though, guys. Over, man. Out. Need some water. Where's my water? There it is.